Hi, it's Richard. Today I wanted to show you my sharpening station and share a couple of tips that over the last couple of years I found useful, some of which I've seen elsewhere and some of which I just came up with myself through necessity. The first, let me just take this camera down. The first is that I have about 24 plane blades and chisel blades that require sharpening at one time or another. So I find it very helpful to write down the angle that I sharpen, the primary bevel that I sharpen each blade at. So here, for example, we have AI, which stands for Ashley Isles, 3/4 inch, 25 degrees. The smaller chisels I sharpen at a steeper angle, so 3/8, 30 degrees, 1/4, 30 degrees. Lee Nielsen 1/4 inch mortise, 25 degrees. And on the planes, it gets a little more complicated because I have here Lee Valley low angle block, primary 25 degrees, number 4 and so on. But then a couple of the planes I sharpen with a back bevel. So Lee Nielsen number 7, primary with back bevel 25 degrees. Lee Valley plow plane 35 degrees and so on. Lee Nielsen number 5.5, no back bevel, 25 degrees. So I find that's very, very useful. It's right in front of me. I also have here a ruler, which I just sort of drew on, and that means when I take my blade, I can very quickly just see, okay, this is a 2-inch wide blade, and in my honing guide, which I'll show you in a minute, I can see straight away where to set the width for that plane blade. Now I'm quite fortunate that in my workshop I have a sink right next to it, and I keep my waterstones. I have a couple of king ones here which I never use really, to be honest, and then I have my favourite ones, which are the Norton. This is a 4000 grit, the 1000 grit, and an 8000 grit, which is coming to the end of its life. It's getting a bit thin, so I actually just bought a new 8000 here, which needs a bit of flattening. I did actually try, before I bought this, I think it was a Sigma 2 ceramic 10,000 stone from Lee Valley. I thought maybe it would give me a finer polish than the 8000, which I was very happy with, but I didn't actually care for it, so I sent it back and I got a new 8000 instead. So let me put this, that's my sharpening station. I've got a couple of slabs here, and on top I have these furniture pads to stop furniture moving, and when they get a little wet, they stick down and they stop the stones moving really, really efficiently. So recommended there. Got those, I think, at the dollar store. So let's put this camera back. Right. Now I use a Veritas Mark II honing guide, and I've used it really from the start of, when I got into woodworking, and I got it with this registration jig, and this is quite useful. So let's say I was taking this blade here, which is from my low angle jack plane, Lee Nielsen low angle jack plane, and I go to my scale and I see it's 2 inches, so I set my registration jig at 2 inches. Now the first thing, the word of warning that I will issue with this honing guide, I really don't like this pin. This pin is used to, you use the holes here, so I've got it set to number 2, which is for the standard angles, and if I wanted a 25 degree primary bevel, I would screw that into the hole there and flip it over, and then I always slide my blades in, obviously not the chisels, but I slide my blades in like this, so that if it were to slip, it would fall onto my hand. And I move this against the side and push it up here so it's parallel. But this is what I don't like about this registration jig. When you move this up to this marker, this fence, or call it whatever you like, it can damage your edge, because this is metal. It can damage your edge. It's very fragile. And what I found is even if you move it up very gently, I don't know if you can see, but sometimes the blade can sit in there, and when you tighten this blade it can cause it to move very slightly this way and snap off, almost unnoticeably, but it does happen. So what I like to do is move this completely out of the way. I never use this, and what I did was I scribed my most commonly used angles on the side here. So this is 25 degrees, 30 degrees and 35 degrees. So I just move my blade with this safely out of the way up to the 25 degree mark, nice and tight. And then you've got to make sure you don't tighten. There are two knobs here, and you've got to make sure that you tighten each one a little bit until you clamp on both sides, otherwise the blade won't be held securely. So tighten a little bit each way until it's nice and held. Now sometimes when you've tightened these two up and you've got your blade in there, this one becomes very hard to loosen. So you just grab a pair of pliers and give it a little turn like that, and then it slides off. The other thing to note is I always, out of habit, return, this is the micro bevel, and this is 0, and essentially this is an offset. The center of this drum is offset. So as you move this notch around to 3 o'clock and then 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock is the same as 3 o'clock, you're moving this bevel, this drum, off center, and so it's allowing you to create a micro bevel very easily. But in my early days, very often I would forget to reset this, and I would go in with my coarse waterstone and undo all my hard work, and essentially be sharpening at a much higher angle. So out of good practice, I always reset this, and that's it. This is I find this honing guide very, very useful. It does have one drawback, and that is this is a drum here which is straight, so it's very hard to camber or curve your blades using this straight drum. Veritas do sell a replacement drum for I think $23 or $24. I think that's really expensive, and also you know, because I often do several blades at the same time, I don't really want to be taking the drum out and so on, so that's a bit of a pain. So what I do is I take some masking tape here and I just cut a little piece off, and I stick it right in the middle of that drum. Then I take another piece and cut it in two, I should have gone all the way around there, but that's a bit short. And I stick it in the middle, like that. So essentially what I'm doing, I can take one more piece here, stick it in the middle, there. What I'm doing here is I'm creating my own cambered drum. So when I come to sharpen, I now find it very easy. This needs flattening and whatnot, so I'm not going to actually do it. But just to show you, I'm now able to slightly rock this blade, just enough to allow me to camber that blade. And when I'm done, it's very easy just to remove this tape, like so. And I didn't have to spend $24. There. So that's one thing that I do, and allows me to get a nicely cambered blade. So then when I come in with, for example, a blade that I don't want to camber, I don't have to spend all my time changing the drum and so on. So those are some tips that I found useful with my sharpening setup. I've got David Charlesworth's Sharpening DVD, which I find really, really useful. So highly recommended. Certainly I use, on one or two of my blades, I use his back bevel method here. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you find some of this useful. Cheers.